The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space, catching the light from two distant stars. Inside, 300 different alien species filled the massive chamber. Their voices mixed together in a strange symphony of clicks, hums, and electronic translations. Today they would vote on something important. Today, they would decide humanity's fate. Tai-Ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the transmission with his arms crossed. His uniform was crisp and perfect, but his jaw was tight. Around him, officers watched the screens in silence. Nobody spoke. They all knew what was coming. On the main screen, the council leader raised 6 of its tentacles. The creature's skin pulsed with colors that the translation software turned into words. We gather to vote on Resolution 7749, the Human Quarantine and Resource Allocation Act. Tai-Ho felt his hands curl into fists. Quarantine, like humans, were some kind of disease. The alien continued speaking. Humanity has expanded too quickly. They are too aggressive, too unpredictable. For the safety of all council members, we propose the following terms. The screen filled with text. Tai-Ho read each line, and with each line his anger grew hotter. 40% of all resources humans mined would go to the council. Not traded, not sold, just taken. Human colonies would be limited to only 3 worlds. No more expansion, no more growth. And the worst part, monitoring stations would be built in every major human city. Aliens would watch everything humans did, every moment of every day. They want to put us in a cage, whispered Lieutenant Hyun beside him. Tai-Ho didn't answer. He just kept watching. In the assembly hall, Ambassador Minji Park stood alone at the human podium. She was a small woman, barely reaching 5 feet tall, surrounded by creatures that towered over her. Some had multiple heads. Others floated in tanks of liquid. A few glowed with their own light. Minji looked tiny compared to them all. But she stood straight, her hands folded calmly in front of her. The council leader's tentacles waved toward her. Ambassador Park, you have 2 minutes to respond to our proposal. Every eye, stalk, sensor, and lens in the chamber focused on her. They expected her to negotiate, to beg, to ask for better terms. That's what species always did when the council made demands. Everyone compromised, everyone eventually agreed. Minji picked up her datapad. She tapped it once, and her voice carried across the chamber, translated into 300 languages at once. The human government has reviewed your proposal. Our response is simple. We reject it completely. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. Aliens shifted in their seats. Translation devices buzzed with confused chatter. Minji continued, her voice steady and calm. Furthermore, humanity withdraws its membership from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately. We will remove all human presence from council space within 72 hours. Now the chamber erupted. Aliens stood up, shouting in their various languages. The translation system overloaded trying to keep up. The council leader's tentacles thrashed in agitation. This is unacceptable, a Vrelian delegate roared. The creature looked like a massive insect standing on its back legs. You cannot simply leave. There are treaties, agreements, contracts. Minji gathered her documents and placed them in her case. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if she had all the time in the world. Those treaties were made between equals. You have decided we are not equals. You have decided to treat us as subjects, not partners. Therefore, we are no longer bound by any agreements. A Sotharian representative slithered forward. Its body was long and covered in scales that shimmered. If you leave, we will impose trade sanctions, embargoes. You will have nothing. Minji smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. We will have our freedom. That is more than nothing. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her small delegation fell in behind her. 20 humans walking away from 300 alien species. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. You will regret this decision, someone shouted. Minji didn't look back. No, we really won't. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. For a moment, the entire council sat in stunned silence. Then the chaos began again, louder than before. On the Defiance, Taiho allowed himself a small smile. Well, she did it. His communication officer looked up. Sir, we're receiving orders from Earth. Put them through. Admiral Hyunwoo Choi's face appeared on screen. The old man's expression was hard as stone. All ships, this is Admiral Choi. Begin Operation Exodus immediately. Recall every human vessel to Earth space. Abandon all council stations. Remove all human personnel from shared facilities. We leave nothing behind, not a tool, not a data file, nothing. Is that clear? Crystal clear, sir, Taeho responded. And Commander Kim? The Admiral leaned closer to his camera. If anyone tries to stop our ships from leaving, you have permission to defend yourselves. We're done being pushed around. Understood, sir. The transmission ended. Taiho turned to his crew. He could see the questions in their eyes, the worry, the fear. But also something else, something that had been missing for a long time. Hope. You heard the Admiral, Taiho said. Send the signal. Every human ship, every station, every outpost. It's time to come home. Across the galaxy, in hundreds of systems, humans received the same message. Scientists packed up decades of research. Traders closed their shops. Families gathered their belongings. Diplomats walked out of meetings without explanation. Soldiers powered down shared defense platforms. The galaxy had wanted to control humanity, to limit them, to cage them. Now they would learn what it meant when humans said no. In her private quarters, Minji Park poured herself a glass of water. Her hands shook slightly now that no one could see. That had been the hardest thing she'd ever done, walking away from everything humanity had built in council space. But it was also the rightest thing. They had asked humanity to choose between dignity and convenience, between freedom and security, between standing tall and kneeling down. Humanity had made its choice, and now the galaxy would have to live with it. The human embassy on Centralis Prime went dark at exactly midnight station time. One moment, lights glowed in every window. The next, darkness. No explanation, no warning, just silence. Across the galaxy, the same thing happened simultaneously. Every human outpost, every research station, every trading post simply shut down. The coordination was perfect. Too perfect. It frightened the aliens who watched it happen. Dr. Suman Kang stood in her laboratory on Tau Ceti 4, directing the evacuation. Around her, researchers packed equipment into cargo containers. Years of work, decades of research, all being loaded onto ships. Dr. Kang, please. Her colleague Threnix approached her. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in distress. At least leave the medical data. The cure for Rothan fever. Millions will die without it. Suman kept working, carefully wrapping a piece of scanning equipment. Then perhaps your council should have thought about that before trying to put monitoring stations in our cities. But the research was shared. It was supposed to help everyone. Suman finally looked at Threnix. They had worked together for 8 years. She considered him a friend. But friendship had limits. It was shared between partners, equals. Your council decided we weren't equals anymore. The council doesn't speak for all of us. Many of us oppose the resolution. Not enough of you. Suman sealed the container and marked it for transport. Not nearly enough. Threnix's scales rippled with emotion. Where are you going? Where is humanity going? Suman smiled sadly. Away. That's all you need to know. The last human worker sealed the final container. Suman took one last look at the laboratory where she had spent nearly a decade. So many good memories. So many discoveries. All of it ending because some aliens decided fear was more important than friendship. She walked out without looking back. On the orbital station above Relian Prime, Captain Jinwoo Lee oversaw the withdrawal of the last military personnel. His ships formed a protective screen around the civilian transports. Hundreds of human families, leaving homes they had built, lives they had established. A Vrelian fleet appeared on his sensors. 20 warships moving to intercept. Sir, they're hailing us, his communications officer reported. Put them through. The Vrelian commander's face filled the screen. The insect-like creature's mandibles clicked aggressively. Captain Lee, you will stop and negotiate. By order of the Vrelian Consortium. Jinwoo leaned back in his chair. We already negotiated. Your council made its demands. We made our choice. You cannot simply leave. There are procedures, proper channels. We followed your channels. We attended your meetings. We accepted your rules. And you responded by trying to chain us down. Jinwoo's voice grew harder. So here's our response. We're leaving. Don't try to stop us. That sounds like a threat, Captain? Jinwoo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No. A threat would be if I said we'd fight our way out. This is just a fact. You had your chance to work with us. You chose demands instead. Now move your ships aside. The Vrelian commander's mandibles clicked faster. And if we don't? Then you'll discover that humans are exactly as dangerous as your council claimed we were. Jinwoo cut the transmission. For a long moment, the Vrelian fleet held position. Jinwoo watched the sensors, his hand resting near the weapons controls. His crew was silent, waiting. Then, slowly, the Vrelian ships moved aside. Jinwoo let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Take us home. The human convoy jumped to hyperspace, leaving empty stations and abandoned facilities behind. On Earth, President Narration stood before the global assembly. Every nation, every colony, every human settlement was represented. The chamber was packed. Outside, billions watched on screens. My fellow humans, she began, today marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. For 23 years, we have been members of the Galactic Council. We joined them hoping for friendship, cooperation, and mutual growth. Instead, we found fear, restriction, and ultimately, an attempt to control us. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we are not a species that accepts chains. We are explorers, innovators, survivors. When faced with impossible odds, we don't surrender. We adapt. The screen behind her lit up with a star map. It showed council space, familiar to everyone. Then the view shifted, rotating to show the opposite side of the galaxy. New stars, unexplored regions, unlimited possibilities. This is the Sagittarius Arm, Nari continued, 40,000 light-years from council space. Rich in resources, full of viable worlds, and most importantly, free from bureaucratic oversight. While the council was busy trying to limit our expansion, we were preparing for this moment. For years, our research ships have been surveying this region. We have identified over 300 potentially habitable planets. Our colony ships are already en route. Excited murmurs filled the chamber. People leaned forward, staring at the map with new hope. This is our new frontier, Nari said. A place where we can grow without permission, explore without restrictions, build our future on our own terms. The council wanted to quarantine us? Fine. We'll go somewhere they can't reach. Somewhere they can't control. She looked directly into the cameras, knowing the council members would eventually see this recording. And if they think this is a bluff, if they think we'll come crawling back when things get difficult, they're about to learn something important about humanity. We don't bluff, we don't beg, and we never, ever crawl. The assembly erupted in applause. People stood, cheering, crying, laughing. For the first time in months, humans felt something other than anger and frustration. They felt excitement. Nari allowed herself a small smile before continuing. This won't be easy. Building a new civilization far from home never is. But we're human. Difficult is what we do best. 3 weeks later, the last human beacon in council space went offline. The final human ship crossed the border into deep space. Every embassy was empty, every station abandoned, every communication line silent. The council tried sending messages. They received no response. They tried tracking human ships. The trails vanished into unexplored space. They tried intercepting communications. There were no communications to intercept. Humanity had vanished as completely as if they had never existed. In the council chamber, Councillor Vren stared at the empty human seat. The chair sat in shadow now, its console dark. A reminder of what happened when you tried to cage the uncageable. He had supported the resolution. He had argued that humans needed to be controlled before they became too powerful. Now, looking at that empty seat, he wondered if they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity was spreading out, building, growing. Without the Council's guidance, without their rules, without their fear holding humans back. And there was nothing the Council could do about it. 6 months passed. The Council learned what absence meant. On Drexia Prime, Mining Director Velthos stared at the drilling equipment that no longer worked. The massive machines sat silent and useless in the purple dust. His people had tried everything to restart them. Nothing worked. "We should have kept the human technicians," his assistant said quietly. Velthos's scales rippled with anger. Not at his assistant, but at himself, at the Council, at their own arrogance. "We thought we had copied their technology. We thought we understood it. We understood how to use it, not how to fix it." The mines of Drexia had provided 60% of the Council's rare minerals. Now they sat idle. The Drexian economy was collapsing. Velthos had sent 17 messages to humanity, begging for help. Every message vanished into the void. No response, no acknowledgement, nothing. It was like screaming into space itself. Across the galaxy, similar problems emerged. On Sothar, hospitals filled with patients suffering from blue fever. The cure had been developed by human researchers. The Sotharians had the formula, but they couldn't replicate it properly. Something in the human process, some tiny detail, made all the difference. Without it, the medicine didn't work. Dr. Pralinth watched another patient die, the 15th that week. She had trained with human doctors, learned from them, respected them. When the Council passed the resolution, she had protested, but her voice had been too small, too quiet. Now people died because of that silence. The Vrelian Consortium faced a different problem. Their vaunted navigation systems, the pride of their space fleet, had started malfunctioning. Ships got lost. Coordinates were wrong. Trade routes became unreliable. Councillor Vren finally admitted what their engineers had discovered. The Vrelian systems weren't purely Vrelian. They were built on human algorithms, quietly integrated years ago during a technology exchange. The Vrelians had reverse-engineered human code, thinking they had improved it. They hadn't. They had just barely understood enough to make it work. Now, without human updates and maintenance, the systems degraded. And the Vrelians had no idea how to fix them. Vren sat in his private office, staring at another unanswered message to humanity. He had sent 43 so far. Apologies, explanations, offers to rescind the resolution, promises of reparations. Every single one met with silence. "They're not negotiating because they're not listening," his aide said. "They've completely cut us off." Vren's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Send another message. Offer them anything they want. Full council membership with veto power. Access to all council resources. Just get them to respond." The aide left. Vren knew the message would join all the others, floating unread in the void. Humans had made their position clear. They were done with the council. Far away, in the Sagittarius Arm, engineer Yejun Bayek stood on a cliff overlooking humanity's first new colony. The city stretched below him, buildings rising from the ground like metal flowers. Construction drones flew in perfect patterns. Power plants hummed with energy. Farms grew under massive domes. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said his assistant, Minho. Yejun nodded. 3 months. They had built all this in 3 months. Without council regulations slowing them down, without committees questioning every decision, without aliens telling them what they could and couldn't do. "The council thought we needed their guidance," Yejun said. "Turns out we just needed them to get out of our way." New colonies sprouted across the region, each one built faster than the last. Humans shared techniques, resources, and knowledge freely among themselves. Innovation exploded. Technology advanced faster in 6 months than it had in the previous 5 years. Without the Council's careful oversight, humans were free to take risks, to experiment, to fail and try again. It was messy and chaotic and absolutely human. How many colonies now? Yejun asked. 17 fully operational, another 30 under construction. The survey teams have identified 60 more potential sites. Yejun smiled. The council had wanted to limit humanity to 3 worlds. Now they were building 80 and counting. Back in council space, a junior analyst named Korith made a disturbing discovery. He was reviewing human departure patterns, trying to understand how they had evacuated so quickly. What he found made his blood run cold. "Director, you need to see this," his supervisor floated over. "What is it?" Korith pulled up a timeline. "The humans didn't decide to leave when we passed the resolution. They had been planning it for over a decade. That's impossible. Look at the data. Every research expedition they sent to deep space, they were surveying colony worlds. Every cultural exchange program, they were quietly extracting key personnel from integrated societies. Every trade mission to the Outer Rim, they were stockpiling resources." The supervisors stared at the evidence. They knew we would eventually try to control them. Or they didn't care. Maybe they were always planning to leave. Maybe they were just waiting for an excuse. Korith pulled up more files. "Director, there's something else. Their military strength." "What about it?" "It was underreported. Significantly." Korith highlighted ship classifications. "The vessels they showed us, the ones they used in joint exercises, they were all old models. Decades old. The weapons they demonstrated in war games? 20 years outdated." "How do you know this?" "Because I found their disposal records. They weren't hiding their advanced technology. They were actively showing us their obsolete equipment while scrapping it." The supervisor felt fear creep through his body. They weren't preparing to leave. They were preparing to ensure no one could stop them. Korith nodded. And it worked. When they departed, they moved with perfect coordination. Hundreds of ships, thousands of stations, millions of people, all extracted in 72 hours. That's not something you plan in a day. That's not even something you plan in a year. Does the council know about this? They do now. I just sent my report. The supervisor turned away from the screen. We didn't push humanity away. We just gave them the excuse they were waiting for. In the abandoned human embassy on Centralis Prime, a cleaning crew finally entered after months of the building sitting empty. Everything was gone. Furniture removed, files deleted, even the decorations stripped from the walls. But in the main lobby, they found something. A holographic projector, still powered, still running. It displayed a single message, looping endlessly. The crew leader read it aloud. "You wanted us gone. Congratulations." The message burned itself into his memory. Not because of what it said, but because of what it meant. Humanity hadn't left angry. They hadn't left defeated. They had left satisfied. They had gotten exactly what they wanted. Freedom. Counselor Vren watched the recording of that message later that evening. He watched it loop 10 times, 20, 30, each repetition driving the point deeper. The council had thought they were punishing humanity. Instead, they had set them free. And now, looking at the reports of human colonies spreading across the Sagittarius arm, of human technology advancing without restriction, of human civilization growing stronger every day, Vren realized the terrible truth. Humanity hadn't lost anything in this divorce. The council had. The warning came too late. A council patrol ship on the rim of known space sent one final transmission before it vanished. Unknown hostiles, hundreds of them. They're not answering hails. They're just attacking. Then nothing, just static. 2 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced something worse than economic collapse. They faced extinction. The Corithian swarm came from the void beyond mapped space. They didn't negotiate, didn't communicate. They just consumed. World after world fell to their advance. The Council's combined fleets engaged them and died by the thousands. Admiral Hyunwoo Choi read the intelligence reports in his office aboard the new Earth Defense Station. His scouts had been tracking the swarm for 3 months. The data painted a grim picture. "How bad is it?" President Nari Song asked from the screen. "Bad. The Council's lost 15 systems in 2 months. The swarm uses tactics we've never seen. Weapons that ignore shields. Ships that move in perfect coordination. It's like fighting a single organism with a million bodies. Nari was quiet for a moment. Casualties? Billions, maybe tens of billions. The swarm doesn't take prisoners. They just kill everything and strip the planets bare. And if we don't intervene? Hyunwoo met her eyes. The council will fall within a year. Maybe less. Good. The word hung in the air, cold and final. Nari's expression didn't change. They wanted us gone. We're gone. Their problems are not our problems. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. I'll inform the fleet to maintain our borders. No engagement with either the council or the swarm. The screen went dark. Hyunwoo sat in silence, thinking about the billions dying in council space. Thinking about how the council had treated humanity. Thinking about whether revenge justified inaction. He didn't have an answer. On Centralis Prime, or what remained of it, Councillor Vren coordinated the evacuation. The swarm was 3 days away. The planet's defenses had already fallen. Now it was just about saving lives. How many ships do we have? He asked. 200 transports, maybe enough for 10% of the population. 10%. Vren looked at the city outside his window. 8 billion people lived on this world. Only 800 million could escape. The rest would die. Start loading the ships. Priority to children and scientists. His aide hesitated. Counselor, I have a suggestion. It's unorthodox. What? We could contact humanity. Vren's mandibles clicked sharply. They haven't answered a single message in 2 years. I know, but maybe if we go there, in person, if we make a pilgrimage to their space, they might listen. They'll laugh at us. We tried to cage them. Why would they help? The aide's voice was quiet. Because they're human. And humans, for all their flaws, are not like the swarm. They care about life, even life that wronged them. Vren wanted to dismiss the idea. But looking at the city, at the billions condemned to death, he found himself nodding. Prepare my ship. We leave in 1 hour. The journey to human space took 4 days. Vren's small vessel approached the border, marked now by warning buoys. They flashed in multiple languages. Forbidden zone, human territory, unauthorized entry prohibited. Vren ignored them and crossed the boundary. Immediately, 3 human warships appeared on sensors. They were massive, far larger than any ships humans had operated in council space. Their weapon systems powered up. This is Commander Tai-Ho Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are in violation of human space. Turn back immediately. Vren opened a channel. Commander, my name is Counselor Vren of the Galactic Council. I request permission to speak with your leadership. The Council has nothing to say that we want to hear. Turn back. Please. The swarm is destroying everything. Billions are dying. We need help. There was a long pause. Then Tai-Ho's face appeared on screen. He looked older than Vren remembered. Harder. You need help. Where was our help when we asked for fairness? When we requested to be treated as equals? You responded with demands and threats. We were wrong. We see that now. Do you? Tai-Ho leaned forward. Or do you just see that you need us? There's a difference, Counselor. One is regret, the other is desperation. Does it matter? People are dying. It matters to us. Tai-Ho's eyes were cold. You wanted zero interference from humanity. We're honoring that wish. Then billions will die. Yes, they will. Just like you were willing to imprison billions of humans to make yourselves feel safe. Tai-Ho cut the transmission. Vren sat in his ship, staring at the dark screen. He had his answer. Humanity would not help. He turned his ship around and began the journey back to dying council space. But not all humans agreed with isolation. Dr. Suman Kang watched the news reports from the Rim. Refugee ships fleeing the swarm. Children crying. Families torn apart. She had worked with these people, lived among them. Yes, their government had betrayed humanity, but these were innocent civilians. She made her decision. Prepare the medical ships, she told her staff. We're going to help. Dr. Kang, Earth hasn't authorized this. I don't care. I became a doctor to save lives, not to count which lives were politically convenient to save. She grabbed her coat. Anyone who wants to stay behind can, but I'm going. Every member of her staff followed her. President Narisong's message came 2 hours later. Dr. Kang, you are ordered to return to human space immediately. No, that's not a request. I know, and I'm still saying no. Suman looked directly into the camera. You can court-martial me when this is over, but right now, people need help, and I'm giving it to them. She cut the transmission before Nari could respond. Meanwhile, Captain Jinwoo Lee tracked the swarm from his stealth ship. He had been following them for weeks, mapping their movements, studying their tactics. What he discovered made him cold inside. The swarm wasn't expanding randomly. They were hunting for something. Their search pattern was methodical, almost mathematical. And when Jinwoo plotted it forward, extrapolating where they would go next, his blood froze. The pattern pointed toward the Sagittarius arm, toward human colonies. He immediately sent an encrypted message to Admiral Hyunwoo Choi. Sir, we have a problem. The swarm is coming for us next. Estimated arrival at our outermost colony, 8 months. Hyunwoo read the message 3 times. Then he called an emergency meeting of Earth's military leadership. We have a choice, he told them. We can wait for the swarm to reach our space and fight them alone. Or we can engage them now in council space, with whatever allies we can gather. The council is not our ally, someone argued. No, but the enemy of our enemy might be useful. Hyunwoo pulled up tactical displays. The swarm is coming either way. Better to fight them where they are than where we are. The debate lasted for hours. In the end, they decided to present the options to the people. Humanity would vote. Across hundreds of colonies, billions of humans considered the question. Should they help the council that had betrayed them? Should they risk human lives to save alien ones? The votes came in slowly. It was close, very close. In the end, humanity chose to act. Not because they forgave the council, not because they wanted to restore old ties, but because isolation wasn't strength, because choosing when and how to engage was power, and because deep down, humans knew something the council had forgotten. Sometimes you help people not because they deserve it, but because you do. The Corinthian swarm had never encountered resistance like this before. They had conquered 43 different species across 8 galaxies. Every species followed the same pattern. First shock, then panic, then desperate last stands that always failed. The swarm was inevitable. The swarm was unstoppable. Then humanity arrived. Admiral Hyunwoo Choi stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching 500 human warships emerge from hyperspace. Around them, the remnants of the Council fleet scattered in confusion. They had expected to die today. Instead, they watched humanity's return. Open a channel to all Council vessels, Hyunwoo ordered. Channel open, sir. This is Admiral Hyunwoo Choi of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're here to fight the swarm. You can join us, or you can get out of the way. Choose quickly. On his sensors, the swarm fleet approached. Thousands of ships moving in perfect synchronization. The Council fleet had lost every engagement with them. The aliens were demoralized, broken, defeated. But humans had studied the swarm, learned their patterns, understood their tactics, and humans had something the Council never did. They had fought wars against themselves for thousands of years. They knew how to kill efficiently. All ships, Hyunwoo said calmly. Execute Formation Theta. Target their command nodes first. The human fleet moved like a single organism. Ships peeled off in precise patterns, creating overlapping fields of fire. The swarm tried their usual tactics, overwhelming numbers and coordinated strikes. They hit empty space. The humans had already moved. Fire. Human weapons lit up the void. Not the energy shields the Council used, which the swarm had learned to bypass. Humans used kinetic weapons, old-fashioned mass accelerators that hurled metal at a fraction of light speed. The swarm's ships crumpled like paper. Command nodes eliminated, the tactical officer reported. The swarm fleet is fragmenting. Without their command structure, the swarm ships lost coordination. They became individuals instead of a hive, and as individuals they were vulnerable. The Council fleet, seeing humanity's success, rallied. They pressed the attack with renewed hope. Together, humans and aliens drove the swarm back. But victory came with a price. Captain Jinwoo Lee's ship, the Guardian, took the brunt of a swarm counterattack. He had positioned himself between a refugee convoy and the enemy fleet. His shields failed. His hull breached. His crew evacuated, but Jinwoo stayed at the helm. "Captain, we need to abandon ship," his first officer shouted. "Not yet." Jinwoo plotted a collision course with the swarm's command vessel, the massive ship at the center of their fleet. "Get everyone to the escape pods. That's an order." "Sir, you can't." "Go." His crew left. Jinwoo sat alone on his dying bridge, watching the swarm command ship grow larger on his screens. He thought about his family, his children who would grow up without him, his wife, who would mourn. But he also thought about the millions of refugees his sacrifice would save. He smiled. For humanity. The Guardian struck the command vessel at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a new star. The swarm's coordination shattered completely. The battle turned into a rout. Hours later, the fighting ended. The swarm retreated, broken and scattered. Humanity had done what the Council never could. They had won. Dr. Sumin Kong worked in her medical bay, treating refugees from a dozen different species. Her hands moved automatically, patching wounds, administering medicine, saving lives. She had been working for 16 hours straight. She would work 16 more if needed. A Sotharian child looked up at her with large eyes. "Are you an angel?" Sumin smiled through her exhaustion. "No, sweetheart. Just a doctor." "But you're human. My father said humans abandoned us." "Your father was partly right. Our governments had a disagreement, but that doesn't mean we stopped caring about people." She finished bandaging the child's arm. "There, all better." The child hugged her. Sumin felt tears in her eyes. President Nari Song arrived at the ruins of Centralis Prime 3 days after the battle. Counselor Vren met her at a neutral station. He looked old now, tired, defeated not by war but by shame. "President Song, I want to thank—" Nari held up a hand, stopping him. "We didn't come for you." Vren's mandibles clicked in confusion. "I don't understand. We didn't come back because you asked. We didn't come back because you needed us. We came back for us. Because isolation isn't strength. Because choosing when and how to engage is power." Nari's eyes were hard. "You tried to dictate terms to us. We left. Now we return, not as members of your council, but as equals. Or we leave again, permanently." I understand." "I don't think you do." Nari stepped closer. "You thought you could control us, put us in a cage, make us small and manageable. What you never understood is that humans can't be caged. We can only be partnered with as equals, or we walk away. The resolution will be rescinded. You have my word. Your word means nothing." The harshness of Nari's tone made Vren flinch. "We're not rejoining your council. We're establishing diplomatic relations as an independent power. We'll trade with species that respect us. We'll defend worlds that treat us fairly. But we will never again submit to your bureaucracy." Vren nodded slowly. "What are your terms?" "No terms. No deals. No agreements that bind humanity to council authority." Nari turned toward the window, looking at the stars. "You want human technology? You trade for it fairly. You want human protection? You earn it through mutual respect. You want human cooperation? You ask, not demand. And if we refuse?" Nari smiled, and it was not kind. "Then we go back to our side of the galaxy and let you handle your own problems. We did it before. We can do it again." She left Vren standing alone in the observation room. 6 months later, humanity had established diplomatic relations with 47 individual species, all outside of council authority. They built trade networks that bypassed council regulations. They created defense pacts that ignored council oversight. The Galactic Council still existed, but its power had shattered. Species look to humanity now, not for leadership, but for partnership. For the first time in galactic history, the Council had real competition. Engineer Yejun Bayek stood on his colony, watching the sunset paint the alien sky in shades of purple and gold. His aide brought him the latest reports. 17 new trade agreements signed this week. 8 species requesting human technological assistance. 3 formal defense alliances proposed. Yejun smiled. And the Council? They've requested a formal meeting. They want to discuss potential cooperation. Tell them we'll consider it. On our terms. Yes, sir. The aide left. Yejun stood alone, thinking about the journey that brought them here. The Council's betrayal, humanity's departure, the hard years of building a new civilization, the choice to return and fight. It had been painful, costly. Many had died, including brave soldiers like Captain Jinwoo Lee, who had sacrificed everything to save others. But in the end, humanity had proven something important. You couldn't cage the uncageable. You couldn't control the uncontrollable. You could only respect them or lose them. The Council had learned that lesson the hard way. In the rebuilt Grand Assembly Hall, a new session began. The human seat remained empty. But this time, it was empty by choice, not by absence. Outside the chamber, humanity built its own future, strong, independent, free. And if the Council wanted human cooperation, they knew what they had to do. Treat humans as equals, or watch them walk away again. On Earth, in a quiet cemetery, a memorial stood for Captain Jinwoo Lee and all the others who had died in the battle. The inscription read simply, "They fought not for glory but for others. Not for conquest, but for compassion." This is what it means to be human. President Nari Song visited the memorial often. Each time she made the same promise. We will never forget. We will never stop choosing when to engage and when to walk away. We will never again let anyone put us in chains. The stars above shone bright and endless. Out there, humanity was spreading, growing, thriving. Not as members of someone else's empire, but as their own civilization. The galaxy had wanted to control them. Instead, it had freed them. And humanity would never be caged again.